Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Best Phone Plans podcast. In this show, we're going to be touching on the Galaxy S21 launch and predominantly focusing on the best paid and free services for streaming your favorite shows, TV, movies, and content, the best live TV alternatives, and some other discussions about the future of entertainment. I'm Stetson, and with me, as always, is Dennis. Dennis, how are you doing today?
As always, my friend, I'm doing well.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. So the first thing I want to do with this episode is actually briefly touch on the Galaxy S21 launch event. Samsung held their announcement this morning, and we actually had a Patreon question from Chaim. So Chaim, thank you for the question. S21. Here's the summary. I'm going to lightly touch on it in this episode, and we're actually going to have a special live stream tomorrow night, Friday, with Sherry Riggs from Whistle Out, which will be awesome. So for this episode, lightly touching on it, the summary is it is a minor update to the S20 with some steps back in certain areas. And I think the goal here was to make the S21 Ultra look like an even better phone. So what's different? You're actually looking at a 1080p display and a plastic back on the S21. S21 Plus has the glass back. You're getting basically the same camera sensors as before, but with the improvements to the Snapdragon 888 processor, you're getting better dynamic range and image processing. You're losing the micro SD card, and all the devices are $200 cheaper across the board. So kind of the gist there, it's a cheaper phone. It's got a really nice new design, and we're going to be talking about it more tomorrow. So that's where we're going to go in depth on that. And that's kind of the S21. So Dennis, you want to just hop into the streaming topic for today? Where do you want to start?
Yeah, man. I wanna kind of talk about your setup a little bit. Now that you finally got your new TV and the speakers going on, man, I'd kind of love to hear about what you're doing currently with your setup.
Yeah, so I did a lot of research on this because moved into a new apartment, did not have a TV, and I thought, awesome, like this is a chance to start fresh, to build something awesome. What I ended up doing is, I went on Reddit, and my roommate and I were thinking, maybe we can just grab a cheap TV and grab a soundbar, call it a day. I feel like that's, a reasonable solution, what a lot of people do. And what ended up happening is I went on Reddit, right? Like a dangerous place to be. I went to I think it was audiophile and home theater setup, and they convinced me within, a couple minutes of reading that the soundbar didn't have enough. The speakers weren't as good as just getting regular bookshelf speakers. So what I ended up doing is building a 3.1 setup. I have two bookshelf speakers on the left and right of the TV and a really nice subwoofer, hoping to eventually expand that and get some two floor standing speakers and move the bookshelves to the side for some 5.1 audio. I think that'll be sweet. And then I got a center channel below the TV, and I ended up getting the Sony X950H television, the 65-inch variant, which is pretty awesome for like a nice theatrical experience. So that's.
Does your TV what platform are you using for like the platform? Like is it Chromecast built in, or is it Roku, Fire Stick? What are you using?
The Sony TV that I got is using Android TV. I actually had purchased the TCL TV before it, and that was using Roku. And I actually think I like Roku. I found the interface to be faster, and it was quicker, for me at least, to find and change the settings I wanted to. So I turned off things like motion flow or smooth motion, or whatever you call that, to eliminate that soap opera effect. So that's what the Sony TV is rocking, and so far it's proven to be pretty good. And this is one of those things I view as like a longer term investment, because I feel like people, my parents still have a TV that's probably like 15 years old or something like that at this point. So I wanted to try and get something that was really nice and going to provide a good experience and last like 10 to 15 years. So
I'm willing to bet money that it doesn't, because I guarantee you it's not going to get updated for 10 years, and you're going to lose support for a lot of the streaming apps.
That could be very true, Dennis. I could definitely see that. So what are you rocking for your kind of at-home entertainment system?
Yeah, so even though I'm the guy that talks a lot about watching TV, I wasn't always that way. So my setup is literally just TV with the built-in speakers. It's a Sony. It's like the XBRG something something. It's 4K. It's an LED panel. It's 120 hertz, which is nice for the PS4 and Xbox One X that I have hooked up to it, as well as my Switch. But it's just a Sony TV, and like you said, it has the Android OS built into it, which is nice. I actually really like it. I actually really like the Android Smart TV OS. I
Yeah,
actually find it to be quite snappy on my TV. I love the remote that Sony includes with it because it's got Google Voice baked in, which is my personal favorite voice assistant.
that is
A-
true.
And it pairs really nicely with a lot of my smart home stuff because I have, like, for example, because I have YouTube TV, Google sent me a like a mini Nest or whatever they call it, smart speaker.
Yep.
So it pairs nicely. I got my Android phone, of course, which I can screen share my phone if I want to share photos if someone's over, or if I want to, like, maybe stream some type of content off my computer. Maybe I load up like a film or something that's not like on an app and I want to share it really easily. I can do that. So I'm kind of loving it. I will just say that if I didn't have the Android SmartOS baked into that TV, like you, Stetson, I would say I would choose Roku as an alternative. They're probably my next favorite as far as, like, streaming services are concerned. Because, like you said, it is generally pretty snappy and it's pretty nice. Although
I really liked the remote too. To jump in here, they actually have a headphone jack on the remote, so you can listen to the TV audio in headphones. Like if you have a roommate who's sleeping, or you want to be a little bit quiet or something like that. And they actually have a volume rocker on the side of the remote, more similar to what you would find on a smartphone. So I liked those changes in design decisions.
I was gonna actually say the opposite thing.
You don't like it?
The only thing I don't like about Roku is the remote. I respect the headphone piece, like that's pretty neat, but I don't like the lack of a numpad. Which, I mean, Roku's all about streaming service. I get it, but if I wanted to watch, say, some antenna TV or something, right,
Yeah.
makes it really difficult to navigate only having the up and down arrows.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. But we're actually going to be talking about, the best alternatives to TV. So maybe people don't need that. And I would assume, like, when you buy a DVR, you get a remote for that as well, right?
I mean, you do, but I'm one of those people where I have so many different smart devices. I want, like, a universal remote of sorts, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. That
Which
makes a lot of sense.
my Sony TV thankfully does pair nicely up with everything that I generally have. So I don't need to use all these different remotes to control. Like, you have a sound system. I'm sure you have your remote paired up so you don't have to have a separate remote to control the sound system, right?
You got me pegged, Dennis. You got me pegged. That's very true.
But
So,
all right, well, let's take that as a chance to move into some paid services that are like TV alternatives. Why don't we go into that?
yeah, absolutely. So I think the one I was first aware of, to be honest with you, because I kind of live under a rock, was YouTube TV, because they started pushing it as a YouTube Premium subscriber. What are the other options? Let's outline some of the options and then kind of go through the highlights of each one and maybe which one we would end up picking.
Sure. So, I mean, the alternative TV space, I would kind of break it up into two categories. You got your, like, traditional TV, where it's kind of like a large bundle covering all kinds of entertainment. So that's your YouTube TV, your Hulu Live TV, or AT&T TV Nows of the world. And then you have this other kind of category that's kind of cropped up, which I want to call, like, the skinny bundle. That services like Sling, like Philo, like, even things like PlayStation Vue to an extent when it was around, even though it's not here anymore. I would call them more on the skinnier side, where they all kind of focus at, like, a specific demographic. Like Philo, it's for the people that don't care about sports. They just want, like, the entertainment content. PlayStation Vue was known for having lots of sports content. Sling, they got their orange and blue bundles where you can get, like, a sliver of content, but not, like, the whole, like, kind of bundle where you get your Fox News channels, your sports, and everything else. But that's just some examples.
Yeah. Where do you want to start with this? Do you want to do? And we also saw, I guess, T-Vision as well from T-Mobile recently.
Oh yeah,
It
T-Vision.
It seems like the carriers are getting more into entertainment. T-Mobile launching T-Vision and including Netflix with their family plans. Verizon, I don't think they offer the same kind of live TV experience, but they do bundle the Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus with their plan. And now T-Mobile is getting into. I already said T-Mobile, so AT&T. They have AT&T TV Now, which I think is actually rebranded to just AT&T TV.
they've changed it so many times. It was DirecTV now, now it's AT&T TV now. Now it's AT&T, whatever they're calling it. But yeah.
So yeah, where do you want to start? Do you want to start on like one platform and go from there? Should we talk about like what we look for in a platform?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about which one we think is the best offering. I think that's a good place to start. Like, which
Yeah,
one's the
right
the,
into
the
it.
pick for you?
That's a great.
Um,
So I was doing research into this, and there was two that I really liked. The first one was YouTube TV. I like YouTube. I like Google. I like their recommendations. I liked the interface, and I think you had brought up that you share the account. With a family, you can support I think up to 6 accounts,
yeah,
and
6 accounts and 3 simultaneous streams.
that's great. So, and I think it's personalized for each account, right? Like you get personalized recommendations and stuff based on your viewing preferences.
Yeah, you literally each have your own individual login. So like you basically invite someone and they sign in with their Gmail account and their own password, and this way you don't have to like password share like other services like Netflix or something. You all get your own individual access with your own individual DVR recordings, and nothing has to be mixed together in any way, which is beautiful.
It sounds great, and I really liked it. The problem I had with it was the price, because YouTube TV launched at $40 and then actually saw two price increases. It went to $50, and now it currently sits at $65 per month. So I personally feel that is expensive for my viewing habits and viewing tastes. So the one that I think I will actually go with as my personal one, I think is Philo. I liked the affordability of it, $20 for 63 channels, and the entertainment focus was awesome for me, as I'm not really someone who watches too many sports or like, yeah, I guess the live sports and those kinds of channels. So Philo with their affordability and meeting my needs seems pretty awesome. What's your pick, Dennis, of these different options we have?
Well, my pick is pretty telling since I paid for it, but YouTube TV does my family needs just right. The reason why it's my favorite is I am someone that values security and I don't like password sharing. So I really love like this one feature, just being able to have it where everybody has their own separate login without me having to share my password is a huge thing for me. Since I have YouTube TV and I got to replace my parents' TV option as well, so it's nice that they got their own thing going on, and I even shared it with my cousin. So I love YouTube TV personally because of that. The channel lineup is diverse enough. It's one of the few streaming services that actually has my local channels in it. Since I'm from Pittsburgh, I got to watch my Steelers and support them. And YouTube TV was one of the few streaming alternatives that actually had local channels included without having to get like an antenna or something.
Yeah, I think that's something we actually didn't really touch on, but I think with TVision, you definitely need a box. Do you need a box with any of the other services?
Yes, Sling makes you get an antenna. Sling doesn't
Oh,
offer
really?
locals. Yeah.
But you just need the antenna for locals.
Yeah, you just need the antenna for locals, but for my parents, that's like the most important things to them.
Yeah,
So,
I got
and
you.
we kind of live out on the sticks a little bit, so antenna doesn't really work well. We get like one channel if we're lucky. So,
So I can definitely see how that's important to you and the different accounts. It sounds like a really great experience where you can have, everyone basically has their own unique TV subscription that gets customized to what they enjoy watching and what they prefer.
and unlimited DVR as well.
That was huge. Have you guys been taking advantage of that? How does that work?
Yeah, I literally record everything because most of the stuff that I want to watch is going on when I'm too busy. So I literally just record everything like 60 days in, or those different shows I told you that I watch. And then I just go back and just kind of binge watch it and stream it and fast forward through the ads. So it's perfect for me. I love it.
That sounds great. So and there are ads with YouTube TV, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, it's just like regular live cable. There's ads just like you would expect. But I mean, I love it. And for me, $65 isn't bad. I mean, like, to give you some perspective, Stetson, my parents, before I took over their finances, were paying almost close to $400 for TV, internet, and home
Whoa.
phone. And they didn't even have like any premiums or nothing.
Whoa.
Yeah, like literally I got them down to just their home phone, like a landline, because they won't give it up, and their internet. I got them down to like $150. YouTube TV is $65, so we're still well under what they were paying. And the beautiful thing here too with YouTube TV, unlike traditional cable, is I can watch it at my apartment, they can watch it at their house, and my cousin can watch it at her house, and we don't have to buy multiple like cable bundles of sorts. You see what I'm saying?
Yep,
So
that makes perfect
effectively,
sense.
it's not that bad. Um,
Yeah,
so
you
yeah,
know, when you frame it that way, you're not really just getting one service. You're actually getting like 5 cable subscription services that are kind of bundled together under one. Because getting service to each house with a traditional model would have been, you know, probably closer to $75 or $80 per household. So when you kind of frame it like that, especially with the added perks and features of YouTube TV, that's a reasonable deal.
yeah. I mean, the only thing I will just say that's kind of disappointing about YouTube TV, and I know it's ironic, but I wish they had like add-ons because there are some channels that are missing. Like my mom, she loves her Hallmark. YouTube TV doesn't have that, so I wish there was a little bit of ability to make it more flexible, as well as the ability to pay for more simultaneous streams. You know, 3 streams, it's a decent amount, but it's also not a lot in the same token since your average family is probably a household of 4.
Yeah, that
So
seems a little weird if you can share it with up to 6 accounts, but then you can only stream 3 streams at a time. That almost seems like a little bit of a limitation. Like, I'd love for 6 simultaneous streams or something like that, you know?
but yeah, I mean, overall, YouTube TV is my top pick overall, and they've been doing me just fine. The $65 stings a little bit, but it's still not as expensive as what my parents were paying for cable, so it works.
What do you think about some of the other kind of more affordable options like Sling TV and Philo?
So I actually really liked Sling.
Yeah.
We actually tried them out before we got on the YouTube TV train. The problem with Sling for me was that their interface is very poorly designed, and it just doesn't play nicely with like smart TVs in any sense. So it makes it hard to find content for like my parents and trying to teach them. And then for me also, one of my problems with Sling personally was that their DVR storage, I believe it's only like 50 cloud hours or something like really small. And as someone that records a lot of shows, like that's like no bueno for me. But yeah, I mean Sling's okay. It's just really confusing too because like they're blue. I think it's
Yeah.
2 streams that
Do
you
you
can
want to
have.
do you want to outline just for people listening how Sling works and kind of what their offerings are?
Yeah, sure. So Sling kind of takes almost like the a la carte model that we've always kind of wanted. They basically have 2 types of packages. They have what's called Sling Blue, which they kind of dedicate to basically news and entertainment related content. So stuff like Fox News, CNN, that kind of thing would be found in that like channel pack, right? And then they have their Sling Orange, which is more dedicated to sports, where you're getting like all your ESPN channels and more stuff that's geared towards that and like family friendly content, like think like Disney Junior, Nick Jr., and that kind of stuff. So they have like these 2 types of bundles. Individually, they're $30. They do give you the option to combine them for like a slight discount to get more of the channels. But after that, then they got like a bunch of add-ons like you'd be more used to with traditional like cable, where you can opt to add on like, you know, international channels, or you can opt to add on different little things, kind of like you would if you talk to your cable provider. DVR is not natively included. It's something you pay for. They kind of basically give you something that's really bare bones, that's cheap, and then kind of let you build your own package of sorts, is the best way to describe Sling.
It sounds like a good solution because, you know, what the problem was before with cable, you were basically paying typically a more expensive rate for a lot, like hundreds and hundreds of channels. But a lot of people I know, they weren't really watching all of the channels. They were kind of, you know, picking their favorites and watching those. So this kind of a la carte model, I feel like, addresses the issue where suddenly you can still enjoy your favorite channels, but pay kind of a more affordable price for them, which in theory sounds great. And I do think Sling's options can work for some people, but then it does kind of sound like they have areas to improve in terms of interface, search and discoverability, and kind of, I think DVR is honestly where they're kind of lacking behind, especially once you said unlimited DVR with YouTube TV. I think, yeah, Sling has some areas to grow there.
Well, their biggest problem is that they just have a lot of gotchas and caveats. Like I was gonna say, so with Sling Orange channels, I believe they only let you have 2 simultaneous streams, but on Sling Blue channels let you have 3 simultaneous streams. Now that doesn't sound like a big deal, but if you're a family, 2 streams is clearly not going to be enough for those channels, right? Like that's just not a lot. And if you are a family as well, the a la carte approach sounds nice, except the way they break up these different channels is it oftentimes is going to require you to add on all these different stuff anyway to kind of combine. Like, it's not like I can just pick the 10 channels that my family wants, right? I still have to buy bundles like traditional cable. So it very quickly becomes kind of as expensive as something like YouTube TV after you tack it on the add-ons, because Sling charges you like $10 for the DVR. To get all the channels that I want, I'm going to need their blue and orange. So
That's
DVR
45.
and that.
That's 55.
Yeah, that's 55. And then I'm probably going to have to pay something else somewhere along the way to get the other thing, right? I talked about the antenna for locals, or basically the point is Sling is really confusing. I like the idea, but in execution, it's simpler for me to get like a YouTube TV where I have like 50 channels that I don't care about, just so I can have the 30 that I want and have the ease and convenience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think one that kind of does a good compromise is Philo, actually. I really liked this approach where you have a super affordable base plan, 63 channels, $20 a month, and then you have add-ons for either Epics or Stars. Those are the two I'm seeing now. And what I liked about Philo, it wasn't quite as good as YouTube TV's unlimited DVR, but Philo gives you unlimited DVR for up to 30 days. So I think that's a reasonable compromise to me. But, you know, what do you think about the 30-day limit? Is that enough time for people to watch their favorite shows?
I mean, for me, it would be. I mean, Philo honestly is really good. Like that. If I wasn't someone that watched sports, Philo would be like my go-to. The problem is that I do watch sports. That's the only reason why I don't use it. But Philo is great. I actually think it's beautiful. And if I lived in if I had a good antenna or something, I could see myself getting an antenna to get my locals and just having Philo and being perfect. Like Philo is great. I have no complaints about them. But what do you think about what AT&T's been doing with their TV package? Because they've been priced pretty expensively, but they made some big changes recently. They just removed their contracts. What do you think about AT&T's offering?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what would have been the newest changes with AT&T? Because it used to be AT&T TV Now. It looks like you're getting HBO Max included, which is pretty good. That's a $15 add-on. You're getting an NBA League Pass premium on us with select packages. But yeah, this is the most expensive one we've looked at so far, starting at $70 a month for their entry-level plan. And then to get the HBO Max included, it's actually only included for 1 year. You have to go to the $85 package or the $95 package. That's right up there with cable territory.
It's actually more expensive than cable. Actually,
yeah. So what's the benefit of going with AT&T TV Now if you're basically paying more than what it would cost to get a cable package?
Well, AT&T TV Now is what I would call premium-oriented TV, right? Like you're not going into it for the pricing, but basically, because AT&T still has that deal for the NFL Network, AT&T TV Now is an easy way to get the NFL League Pass, which gets you like literally all of the sports channels without having to have like a big old dish slapped to your house.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that's really nice. Two is that if you live in an AT&T market, I believe you get an additional discount on your UVerse bill. When you start getting like their TV, like they just introduced it, like basically they're giving discounts on like the AT&T cell phone side, and then they're introducing discounts on the internet side when you start bundling your TV together, which is kind of new and exciting.
This is so weird to me though, because it seems like AT&T is basically becoming the people they're trying to replace, right? Like I feel like before you would sign up, you'd get home phone, you'd get internet, and you'd get cable from one company. Maybe it was Spectrum or you know, the other options out there. And now I feel like you're just doing the same thing with AT&T, and it's slightly different. They're just trying to like add a few different perks.
I mean, they've always done that though. I mean, the only difference is that instead of having to get TV in the traditional sense, they're offering a streaming platform, which is cool because it lets people outside of AT&T territory, like, you know, I have Comcast internet, I can get AT&T TV and get AT&T cell phone and get like a discount type of deal. I mean,
that is pretty good. All right, I'll take that.
So I mean, it makes sense, and I mean, I understand why companies do it. I mean, statistically speaking, the more products that you buy from a company, the less likely you are to actually end up switching over to another provider.
You become entrenched.
And honestly, one of the biggest costs for companies is customer acquisition. So it's important to try to keep as much customers as you can, however you can. But circling back to the actual TV platform itself, I think it's good. It's just expensive. It's just you just gotta know what you're getting into. It's a premium experience. It's expensive, but if you're a sports lover, it's a sports man's paradise because they got like basically all the sports channels thanks to their inked out deal that they have with the NFL League Pass. So, sports
I
haven
can
right
respect
there.
that. So, all right, I think we should maybe conclude this segment with the big question. Are these on demand cloud streaming services and platforms better than going with cable TV?
Short answer is I don't think so.
Really? I'm
uh,
kind of surprised. What makes you say that?
Well, most people aren't like me where I'm living separately from my parents, right? Like if you're getting cable, you're probably all in one nice household. And if that's your situation, then from a cost perspective, cable TV and YouTube TV are relatively the same. The difference being is that I know Comcast, for example, will give you a longer price lock or give you faster internet for bundling. Like we were talking about how AT&T tries to pin that in.
Yeah.
So if your provider is doing that, it changes up the cost equation, at which point you might be better off going with traditional cable and just getting your TV from them. Um, Long answer is it can be better if you are in a situation like myself where I'm living in an apartment by myself, but my parents don't want to watch TV. If we're talking about sharing the cost, then yeah, it's absolutely better. YouTube TV is cheaper, and I can watch it anywhere. It kind of depends on the situation, though. So if
Yeah.
you're a big family by yourself, probably not. But if you're by yourself, maybe.
I think if you can split it, like if you're splitting YouTube TV, I think that easily makes it a much better value proposition, which may be what they're hoping for. For me personally, I think the live TV alternatives are a better value. I think, the experience of being able to use an app, not need to pay for any equipment or installation charges, to not need an antenna, and to just be able to stream everything over the internet. That works out really well for me in my particular use case. And I'm someone who, I never had cable growing up. We never paid for a cable plan. We got Netflix. That was sort of my cable, my window into the TV world. So, for me, not coming from a cable TV experience, I feel like I wasn't really missing out. Like, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. And I would go with, as I said, probably based on the options, Philo or Philo. How do you pronounce that? I feel like I've been saying.
I say Philo, but Philo's
Okay.
probably right too. Tomato, tomato.
We'll be consistent. Philo. I would go Philo because if I feel like it meets my needs at a super affordable price, and I also have options to kind of build up from there. And we didn't really touch too much on it, but I think T-Mobile's T-Vision is interesting, where they kind of have different plans based on if you want to watch sports and news, if you want more entertainment channels and things like that. And they're including a somewhat reasonable 100 hours of cloud DVR recording. So
Is 100 hours reasonable though? Because if you look at traditional cable like TV space, like Comcast gives 300 hours of DVR space. I think Dish gives you 1,000, I think, or something like that, something wild. And then I was on AT&T's website; it's like 500 hours or something like that. So is 100 hours reasonable?
I think for the price, I mean, yeah, I think it's okay. I mean, compared to some of the other offerings, like what Sling's doing, I think, if you bundle in a Sling package, I think it's not bad, but it could be better. How about that?
Fair enough. I think, and to end this segment nicely, I think we can just all agree that live TV is expensive.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So maybe it's better to just get your favorite paid streaming services. But before we talk about that, I want to give a special shout out to the Patreon page. Patreon's a great way to support the show and get exclusive access to behind the scenes content, extra posts. You can actually vote on what cell phone plan I test out and review next. The last poll I did asked for T-Mobile, so that video is in the works, and there will be a behind-the-scenes video going soon. So please consider supporting the show on Patreon. The link is in the video description or in the show notes if you're listening to these podcasts after the fact. Really cool way to get some extra content and, help support what we do and help me cover the cost of all the cell phone bills that I sign up for. So thank you for that. And the second thank you, we actually had a super chat in the YouTube live stream version of the show. Raymond, I want to give a special thank you to you for your support. I truly appreciate it. and it really helps, cover the cost of all of the plans I sign up for. So thank you very much for that. With that said, Dennis, let's go on to some of the paid streaming services. These are the ones I'm a little bit more familiar with and actually use a couple of myself. So what are we looking at here?
Yeah, why don't you tell me which ones you're personally using now that you actually have your TV set up? What do you got going on?
I'm lucky enough to have, I feel like, most of the big ones. So I personally have Apple TV Plus, got included for free with the iPhone 11 I bought last year, and that is still going until February. I'm also on Netflix. My parents, as I mentioned, have had Netflix for quite a few years now, and I actually split the bill with them, so I paid to upgrade us to the 4K plan because I wanted to watch 4K on my 4K TV. They were on the 480p plan before, and I was not having any of that. So that's what we got. We got Netflix, we got Apple TV Plus, and I'm now getting Disney Plus and Hulu with my Verizon family plan that I'm a part of. So I've been
Okay.
enjoying those as that's my trifecta. Those are my services. And my
No
roommate,
Amazon Prime in there.
I don't have Amazon Prime. I'm not a Prime membership. Not a
Dang.
Prime member. The 2-day shipping, missing out. And my roommate has HBO Max, or some form of HBO that I think works. So that was what we're rocking. Dennis, what are you doing for your setup?
Yeah, man. I must be sick in the head, but I literally got them all. I pay for HBO Max. I pay for Netflix 4K. I got Hulu no ads. I got Amazon Prime. I got Crunchyroll, which I'm grandfathered in on a great rate, which is a good streaming service for anime. I even have Showtime and Stars actually, as well as I'm probably forgetting a premium that I probably still have somewhere on my bill somewhere. But I literally got them all, and then I got Disney Plus thanks to my girlfriend. I'm using her login, so
That's so
I-
nice. Well,
I-
Dennis, I feel like you're the perfect person to have on the show for this because I feel like you can give like a good, well-rounded experience and share your thoughts on some of these. So I guess of the streaming platforms you have, which ones do you find you use most and why?
of the ones that I have, I use HBO Max the most, followed by Crunchyroll, Netflix, and then Hulu
Okay.
in that order.
And is it the content that's on these platforms, or I mean, that's probably the number one thing, right?
Yeah, it's the content, and yeah, it's strictly the content. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
That's a fair point. So then I think another question then, if you have access to all of these, which one do you feel like provides the best interface and viewer experience where you're going in to watch your shows?
mm, Probably Netflix. Netflix probably gives the best user interface for finding my shows and content. I would give it to them because
You
they
know-
got the multiple user profiles, and then
Yeah.
they do give some. I mean, they're. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think their recommendations are that helpful. It's usually the same Netflix originals that I see, but it still leaps and bounds better than the others. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. As someone that's had taken many UI and UX design courses, I actually don't think any of the streaming services do an incredible job at making sifting through all their content easy. To be honest, at least on TV, I should say.
It's hard because I feel like the best approach is to just have a search bar, and I don't feel like there's no keyboard input, and I think you're kind of missing out on that to a lot of it. And maybe there could be a way to like filter by genre and stuff, but I'm not sure. I think I agree with you with Netflix though. I actually do like their recommendations and their interface. I'm not a huge fan that the shows start like auto playing in the background if you're hovering over them for a certain amount of time. I
I
think
think you
they're
can turn that off though. You can turn
I'll,
it off.
I'll look I'll look into that. That's definitely on me then, but it's definitely been a strategy of Netflix to I think try and increase watch time and engagement on the platform just by having things autoplay and get into it. But I do like the originals. Yeah, maybe that's another good topic. Which platform do you feel like has the best original content or exclusive content? And maybe this varies by preference, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts.
Well, if we're just talking about original content in general, then HBO Max has it hands down because they've been around longer. Like they literally have a whole catalog of stuff going all the way back to like the 80s of just great stuff from The Sopranos to Game of Thrones to newer stuff like the Wonder Woman that came. I mean, HBO has so much content. Now, if we're talking about who's been coming out with more interesting stuff recently, I think Netflix, because they've been taking like this shotgun approach. Like Stranger Things popped off. They actually been making some original animes that I've been really liking.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
so I would say it's between those two. I guess you could say Disney Plus has good content, but I
Yeah,
mean,
I have mixed feelings about Disney Plus. So the things I like about it, obviously the Disney shows, the Marvel universe. I love that you can sort the Marvel universe based on the release dates of the movies as well as sort of the timeline of the cinematic universe. I think that's a really cool feature. And I think the interface to me is reasonably clean. It's not, I feel like, as responsive as Netflix and some of the other streaming apps, but overall I think it's it's pretty good. And then I think, for me, the exclusive content, like Netflix doesn't have anything new that's coming out besides The Mandalorian. And they just announced like a
you mean
huge
Disney
lineup.
Plus?
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. They announced a lot of shows coming up in the future on their service, but as of today, it's one of those services I would get annually just to watch The Mandalorian, and then kind of cancel after I finished watching the shows I wanted to. And I actually really like the Netflix originals. And did you hear that they announced in 2021 they're doing a new, I think it's a new movie per week.
I did not hear that.
Yeah, so Netflix is releasing, I believe it's all originals, and I think they're doing one movie or maybe one show. I think it's a movie though, but it's one new piece of Netflix original content every week.
Well, that's good because one thing I will say about Netflix is it seems like they're losing a lot of their like not original content, and the
Yeah, with
stuff
the
that they do
agreements.
have, and the stuff that they do have, like they'll only have like 1 or 2 seasons. They won't have like the full collection, which is really annoying.
Yeah, that is kind of a bummer. I love
But
being able to binge through a show, like getting that full access and watching through it. I think that's the best.
you mentioned that you had Apple TV.
Yeah.
Um, I got that for free when I got my iPhone 11, and I signed up for it, but I literally never watched anything on it and canceled it just so I wouldn't forget.
Yeah.
What's on Apple TV? Because I didn't see anything. What is on there? like,
Um Honestly, the show I liked the most was The Morning Show, and I don't think there's been a second season yet, so I will cancel as soon as my free trial is up. What what I will say that I kind of respect about Apple TV is it's all original content and it's only $5. So, to dip into something new, I think it's kind of a cool option, and I appreciate the affordable pricing, especially when Netflix is $9 starting and goes up to $18 per month, and then HBO Max is $15 a month. So I appreciate the affordability of Apple and how you can bundle it in with their Apple One subscription service, which I'm actually considering myself. But in terms of time on platform, I think Apple TV is my lowest, and I'll say that Netflix is pretty high for me, just because we have that.
so Stetson, here's a good question for you.
Yeah.
If you had $100 to dedicate towards entertainment, build me your ultimate entertainment bundle. You can pick the live TV services that we talked about. You can pick these paid streaming services. Build me your ultimate entertainment bundle for your TV.
I think if I was building, my ultimate TV bundle, I gotta straight up throw in YouTube Premium. That's $10. I love having that. I think I haven't spent too much time watching TV, so I'd actually get more value out of the streaming services. So I'd probably opt for Disney Plus. I'd probably go for the Netflix Premium plan, and I would probably go for HBO Max. For TV, I'd probably give Philo a try, see if I like it or whatever, and I might just call it a day and pocket the rest if that's allowed.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Maybe I'll allocate some of that to Prime Video or something.
Yeah, I really actually can't. I still can't believe you don't have Amazon Prime. Like, that's nuts to me.
I never
Uh,
got into it. I think I intentionally avoided it because in my mind it kind of creates this, oh well, I'll just get it on Amazon mindset. And I sometimes prefer shopping locally, or B&H Photo Video is usually
Yeah,
my go-to.
But it's
So
such good value, man. I mean, you get the 2 day, you get the actually it's 1 day shipping where I'm at. So you get
that's
the one
insane.
you get the 1 day shipping. They do got the fresh delivery, so I can get my groceries off of Amazon. They
Yeah,
give you the
yeah.
unlimited photo storage for backups of photos. You get straight
Okay,
up
they're
unlimited.
just locking you in with that.
Yeah, they got the unlimited photo backup. Then they got the Prime Video, which, as far as a streaming service is concerned, is my hands down pick for the worst setup. Because they
Oh,
don't have
what makes it so bad?
well, they don't have multiple users, so like I have to share my email that I use to like my parents to watch like
Oh.
Amazon Prime content. So what ends up happening is like my dad loves Elvis Presley, so he watches all this Elvis stuff. My mom watches these old timey shows that I have no clue what they are. So then when I try to log on to Amazon Prime and look at my recommendations, all I'm seeing is like like
A bunch of garbage. Like, I'm not interested in any of this.
yeah. So I mean, I know there's good content on there, but I literally can't find it because it's so messed up.
That's interesting. Yeah. All right. So, you have $100. What would you bundle together for your? I mean, you kind of talked about what you have, but
Well,
I
I'm
don't know if-
paying well over $100 for everything I have.
yeah,
But
if you have to
yes.
slim things down.
So if I had to slim things down, it would be Netflix 4K version because I can't settle for less. HBO Max, so that basically puts me at what Netflix is $18 now, right? And HBO
Yeah.
Max is 15. So just to make it simple, $32, I think, or whatever that is.
Yeah,
33.
yeah. That sounds good.
So I'm at $33. That means I got 77 or something like that. to go.
67.
67. I'd probably gotta get Crunchyroll because
Yeah?
I love my anime, and I'd probably get Hulu no ads because I don't like ads. So that pretty much eliminates me from getting any of my TV services, which kind of sucks. But I'd probably stick to those streaming services, throw in the YouTube Premium like you did because I don't like ads on YouTube, and
Call it a day.
call it a day. I guess I'd be upset a little bit to lose my TV channels, but I guess I'd have to live.
That's the challenge of the question, Dennis. And Dennis, I actually have some good news for you. We have some people on the YouTube live stream of the podcast chiming in right now that Amazon Prime now has profiles. We actually have
I'll have to make
two
that.
people looking at that. So, Dennis, get excited. Look into this, and hopefully you can create some personalized viewing profiles so you can get actual recommendations and see what Amazon Prime Video has to offer for your content.
I will do that after the show.
We also have a commenter joining the live stream who's doing a +1 for Crunchyroll. So, Cameron, thank you for the comment.
So Stetson, I know I didn't bring this up to you, but did you actually see that Sony bought Crunchyroll?
I don't think I saw that. What happened there? They were just ours, and they bought it.
Yeah, so Sony actually owns a lot of like anime studios, and they ended up acquiring Crunchyroll, which Crunchyroll, if you don't know, is like a gigantic stream. Like they have a lot of licenses here in the US to basically redistribute anime series from overseas. And Crunchyroll's kind of like got this reputation as being the go-to. So they got stuff on there like Overlord and One Punch Man and a whole bunch of other stuff. They own the rights to basically stream it here in the US. So if you're an anime lover like myself, Crunchyroll is one of your best picks to actually watch the anime service legally. Because before Crunchyroll came around, at least in the US, there wasn't really a good way to watch anime. You had like Cartoon Network on Adult Swim, and that was about it. So a lot of people would use like, I'm not going to mention names, but like not so legal websites to try to watch anime. So it's a big acquisition for Sony, and it's going to be a big money maker because before that it was AT&T, I believe, that owned Crunchyroll. So AT&T sold it off to Sony.
That's interesting. I feel like a lot of these platforms move around a lot, and I'm glad that there's a way for anime fans to be able to support the shows. I hope the money traces back to the shows, but I think it's great that there's a way to be able to do that.
I mean, if you want to have a better way to do it, you get a VPN, and then you just log on to Netflix and put yourself in South Korea, and then there's a whole bunch of new shows that you would be able to watch just by
That's
using
amazing.
a VPN.
Wow. Wow. Shout out to affiliate partner ExpressVPN. Link in the description.
But I feel like we beat this. I mean, we talked about these streaming services kind of before.
Yeah. One more thing is, what's the best platform to watch these on? Like Google TV? Is it just the built-in software on the TV? Apple TV? What are you using? What do you think is a good approach?
So my smart TV has the Android TV OS built in, and then because I'm a Comcast customer, I got their Flexbox for free.
Okay.
And I actually, so if we have to pick one that's just normal, I'd probably pick the Android OS just because it synergizes nicely with my ecosystem. But I will just say what Comcast is doing with their Flexbox, I actually really like. Basically, for those out there that have never used Comcast, they have their own like voice remote assistant, and their voice remote assistant, in my experience, has been the best for actually finding content. So I can say something like Wolf of Wall Street from like the main page, and it will search through everything. Like literally every streaming service that I have that they support, it'll search through all of it. And then it'll just pop up my watch options, and then I'll just click like it's on Netflix, and it'll just take me right to the show and start playing. It's very much similar to an Apple TV experience. If anybody's ever used Apple TV, where it just aggregates everything on one nice page, so you can see it all. So actually, Comcast would get my pick for consuming content if they can just add some support for some more apps.
That's a really great point. I think my top picks are Google TV and Apple TV for the same kind of reason. Google TV will aggregate content from all of your streaming platforms and actually provide recommendations on your home screen, so you can just jump right into your favorite show, not really worry about what platform it's on. And the same kind of goes with Apple TV. However, something I learned from doing a deep dive into my TV is that Apple TV might be my favorite / the best because it will output the video signal at the native frame rate that the content was shot in. This means if you're watching a 24 frames per second movie, which is most movies out there, the Apple TV will output a 24 frames per second signal. And my TV happens to be able to interpret that natively because it's got a refresh rate that can go up to 120 hertz, and that actually is perfectly divisible by 24, and it'll play the content at its native frame rate. However, some of the streaming apps, so the Chromecast dongle, the Google TV dongle, and all of the built-in smart apps on the TV actually operate at 60 hertz. And so the 24p content has to be interpolated up to the 60 hertz refresh rate. And that can cause some jitter, some judder, and other visual sort of differences in the film that makes it less smooth. And Sony does offer some image processing to kind of turn that off and to give you that sort of smoother playback. But, just from that alone, I think I love being able to watch content the way it was shot, the way it was designed. And so for me, I think Apple TV is the way to go.
So going back, though, the only reason why I would not use Apple TV
Sure.
is for two reasons. One, it's by far the most expensive.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
And two, I also dislike the remote. What you'll find is a common trend by the two that I mentioned is that my TV has like a full-on remote, and then the Comcast thing that I mentioned also has a more traditional remote. I really don't like the remotes from Apple TV the same way I didn't like the Roku remote.
Sure. Yeah, that's a fair point. My poor grandfather had to use he actually got a stylus and he like deliberately would put the remote on a table and swipe around on it with the stylus because it was really hard for him to use and it wasn't as intuitive.
And that's a shame too, because like honestly, if you ask me who has the best like software, like performance wise, the Apple TV definitely runs the best. I just hate the remote.
Yeah, I hope. Well, thankfully that's a fixable problem, but unfortunately it also will not be fixed. So, kind of a mixed bag there. But for me, just the 24 frames per second, that's a dream. That's what I love.
Yeah, man. But yeah, that's some good stuff. So, I noticed you didn't say Roku though.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I like their TV interface, but I would prefer the other one. Like, I would prefer other content and the being able to cast. I mean, every TV, basically every new TV, I should say, pretty much has Google Chromecast built in. A lot of them are even getting AirPlay as well.
Oh no, you're wrong, Stetson.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, dude. If you get a Samsung TV, Samsung has like their own OS. It's like some type of weird Tyson or whatever. They have their own thing going on. Like Samsung doesn't use.
No, but I think it'll still support Chromecast. Like it's not Android TV, the operating system. The operating system is different. You're right. It's Tizen TV, but there is, I'm pretty sure, an option to cast to the TV.
I think there is, but I think it has to be like a Samsung to Samsung thing. I think. I'm not 100% sure on that. I know Apple phones don't work on those Samsung TVs because Apple does their own little thing with AirPlay.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I don't know 100% about that. I don't have a Samsung TV anymore.
I want to say you're definitely right for like the older models. I think for the newer ones, I'm pretty sure they all just come with everything built in.
Okay. Well,
which
then
is nice.
that's a positive change. That's a good change.
Yeah, you almost don't need a streaming box. You can just use what the TV has.
Yeah, I mean, unless you get into a sticky situation where like HBO was having that fight with Roku there for a long
Oh,
time.
yeah, that's a good point. All right, that's a very fair point. So sometimes you need something.
Yeah, but why don't we talk about some of the free content that's out there, my man? Because there's a lot of free stuff you don't have to pay for.
Yeah, we put that actually in the title. So what have we got? What's good? What's free? And what can people get for literally nothing?
Well, if you're someone that does love Roku, you got the Roku channel. And Roku's been putting a big emphasis on adding a lot of content to that with their acquisition of Quibi's content that's going to be coming over. So you got Roku channel, which is free and it's pretty solid. Um, Pluto TV is something that I told you about on this show before, and they literally got like thousands of ad-supported channels that cover. There's an anime section, there's a news section, all kinds of other stuff on there. Peacock, which honestly, when it comes to the free services, probably my go-to and the one I watch because they did just get The Office pulled over, which is pretty legit. And I actually got the premium version for free included from having Comcast internet, so Peacock is.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, this actually looks pretty reasonable. It's somewhat comparable to the Apple TV, where it's only $5 a month for their Peacock Premium.
Yeah, but you can get it for free as well. You just don't get all the content per se. But if you have like anything Comcast internet or whatever, you get their premium for free included. So Peacock is pretty solid. For my sports lovers out there, Zumo is actually a good place to get Fox Sports. And then there's Tubi and Crackle. Now, Stetson, I know I made you do homework. Did you do any research on any of these?
I did research on all of the live TV platforms, and I missed the free legal streaming services.
Okay.
So I'm gonna give you, I'm gonna give myself a rating of like a C plus.
Okay. Okay. Well, first off, Stetson, I highly encourage that you download Pluto out of all of them, because there's a lot of like channels there, and they basically have support for every like device, which is pretty cool. Also, Peacock, you should get, Stetson. You said you like The Office, and The Office is on there now, which is dope. But my question to you is, well, I guess this is a poor question, but do you think that if I took all your budgeting away from you, Stetson, that you could get by with just using free streaming services?
Definitely. Considering I am not using any free streaming service even right now. I mean, if you took away like all the Netflix and all of
Yeah,
that,
that's what I'm saying. You have no Netflix, no HBO, none of
Ooh.
that. I'm saying you only can get by with free stuff.
I would much rather have one paid platform than all of the free platforms combined, I feel like.
No, Stetson, you're broke. You only can afford your internet right now. It's a hard month on
Oh,
YouTube.
man.
Adpocalypse happened.
Well, I guess the good news is I don't have to choose. I can literally get all of them because they're all free.
True, but I'm asking, do you think you could get by? Or do you think they're all kind of like junk?
I mean, no, I think I could get by. I think there's enough that I could find something I'd be interested in and enjoy it.
Okay.
I mean, what do you think? I could be off here because, as you can tell, I did a C minus on my homework.
Yeah. So for me personally, a lot of these free streaming services, although they have lots of good content, they'll typically run like okay, I'll use Pluto TV for example. So they have a bunch of news stations on there, right? But what you're not going to find on there is like Fox News, right? You're not going to find like Fox News, for example, which is like something that's on like every like cable lineup, right?
Yeah, like the big ones.
Yeah, you're going to see like Newsy, you're going to see Cheddar News, you're going to see different news outlets that you've probably seen on YouTube, like TYT, the Young Turks, than you are to see something that's like a legit, like quote unquote, like cable news operator, right? Or like your local news network, like KDKA. So for me, that's kind of sucks because if I'm going to watch the news, I kind of want to watch my local, which goes back to why I had the YouTube TV. And the same thing can be said about like some of the anime content too. Like for anime, they're doing reruns of like Naruto, which came out forever ago, right?
Yeah.
Or if it's not Naruto, it's some really like niche anime that came out in like the 80s and has like an older design. It's not going to be like the current season of Overlord or whatever that came out, right? So for me, that's not necessarily something that gets me excited. Now, for someone like my mother, She actually loves Pluto TV because they have a whole channel dedicated to like the Brady Bunch, and they have a whole channel dedicated to like the I'm trying to think of those monsters that live in the house, and the mind is slipping my name. Please tell me you know what I'm talking about. You know those, like, do you know the monsters that live in the house? There's a show.
I really wish I did help you out here, Dennis. Unfortunately, I'm drawing a blank on that. So
I think they were literally called the Munchkers or something. I literally cannot remember, but they're like a really old show from like black and white. Like it's literally just like these monsters that live in a house. It's like a mansion. They got like the little detached hand that moves around. I'm sure if someone likes those older shows, they know what I'm talking about. It's slipping my mind, but they have like a whole channel dedicated to that. So like, that's pretty cool. So if you're into like older stuff and kind of like off the beaten path, like there's definitely stuff to watch. There's actually a lot of international content on there as well for like Spanish speakers that might be in the audience. But it's not really what jives with me. Peacock would probably be the only free streaming service that's on there that actually has stuff that slightly jives with me. But even that library is rather small. They do have a channel that's like dedicated to like Hell's Kitchen, which is something I love. I can rewatch that all the time. We talked about The Office.
That's pretty good, yeah.
We talked about The Office being on there. They actually had Harry Potter on there for a little bit, believe it or not, the whole Harry Potter franchise. So Peacock's been getting some decent stuff and would probably be the only free service that I would watch. But honestly, if I got stuck in that situation, I'd probably just go back to just watching YouTube or Twitch or something like that.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, you're definitely right. I mean, that's
Oh,
what I do
Breaking
now.
Data came in clutch. Addams Family. That's what I was trying to say from earlier.
Oops. There you go. Breaking Data, thank you so much for your contribution and saving the day here. So Dennis is legitimately talking about a real show, everyone. We have that confirmed. Great. So I think that's, pretty much a great discussion. Do you want to focus now on the future of entertainment and where we see entertainment evolving?
Absolutely. So this is going to be a hot take for you.
I love it.
I think that streaming services are going to follow basically the track record that cable had. So I don't know if you did your history check, but when TV first came around, everything was over antenna. And this fancy new technology came about called cable live TV. And when it was introduced, cable didn't have ads. There was no ads on cable TV. That was the whole reason why you paid for it. But slowly over time, they introduced ads until ads became like 30 minutes of like the hour that went on. And I think that streaming services are going to go that same route. Like right now we see Netflix doesn't have ads. They're raising their rates and they're keeping no ads. But what I think is going to happen is even if it's not Netflix per se that introduces the ads to their model, I think we're going to see these platforms that we were talking about from earlier start overlaying ads like Roku, like Fire Stick, like Google Chromecast to generate revenue. So I think we're going to slowly see ads just keep creeping back. I mean, we actually already see it to a certain extent on the Fire Stick platform. Amazon's constantly berating users with ads to watch their content over others. I
think Roku is somewhat similar where there are some ads and like sponsored recommendations and things like that. Dennis, I'm afraid to say it. I think you're right. I think that we're likely going to see on platforms that support it, maybe like Google, not Apple, but maybe some of those aggregate services, you may see sponsored shows, something like that. And I think for the other platforms, I could see an ad-supported plan that like drops the price. Let's say Netflix, 4K ad-supported, $10 a month or something like that. And I think that could be a real option. But I also think an ad-free subscription will still be available.
I think that if Netflix stays ad-free, they might take the niche of like an HBO, like a premium. But I don't think the other streaming services will do that. Like I think what we're going to see is like Hulu removes the I don't know if you know this, but Hulu no ads doesn't actually equal no ads. There's actually lots of content on Hulu that will still run ads, even if you have the no ads version. The ads only applies to original Hulu content, basically.
Oh,
and
geez.
So what I think is going to happen is they might have a quote unquote no ads version of the service, but it might only be for the original content, right? So Hulu's already kind of going down this rabbit path. I could absolutely see Disney having ads. ESPN Plus, absolutely could see that having ads too. I mean, it's sports, you know. I mean, the only streaming service that I think wouldn't go down the ad path possibly is HBO and Netflix. Those are like the only two that I could see. HBO because they've always been a premium movie channel and that's like been their shtick, and then Netflix because they're big enough at the moment that they could probably avoid it. But I still think ads would still sleep their way in some other way. Like I said, it might be Roku that ends up introducing it in front of Netflix, right? Not Netflix doing it themselves.
It's challenging because the streaming services have your attention and they're slowly aggregating analytics to provide, better targeting opportunity for advertisers. And it just becomes this opportunity for advertisers to reach your eyeballs, to put their product, their service, or whatever in front of you. So yeah, I'm not sure how it will pan out, but I could definitely see in a couple years ads creeping their way back in, especially after you paralleled it to the introduction of cable TV. So
yeah, history tends to repeat itself. I was gonna say, here's another hot take for you. I think that with all the new streaming services that have been popping up, I think we're gonna see a rise in piracy again.
Oh, why is that? Why do you think that?
Well, basically, people. So there was I looked up a statistic. It was on like IndieWire.com that said the average person has 4 paid streaming services. That's the average.
Okay.
If the average is 4 and people want to watch a good majority of their stuff, I don't think they're going to go out and just start buying all these little individual ones. Like we talked about last week, Discovery Plus coming out and they're pulling like a bunch of their content just to Discovery Plus. We talked about, we didn't talk about this, but there's like CBS All Access, and what they do is they pull all their shows off of Netflix and make their own streaming service. And we're seeing that happen where like there's a bunch of streaming services popping up, but their libraries are all considerably smaller than say what Netflix has to offer. I don't see people going out of their way to go pay for these small services just to watch the one series, like how on Disney Plus I only wanted to watch Star Wars. Like I don't see them going out of their way to pay for it. Instead, I see people just going online, doing a quick Google search and downloading it off of like the Pirate Bay or finding some like illegal streaming site because it's very common. You know what I mean? Like, I think if I remember when Game of Thrones was still running, it was one of the most pirated shows. It like got like a record for being one of the most pirated shows. And basically what I'm getting at is this. Piracy is easy. It's actually easier than finding some of the content on these streaming sites sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. That's what needs to be solved. It needs to be easier to watch the content and pay for it than it is to potentially pirate it. And that's where the opportunity is. And actually, we have a great comment in the YouTube live stream version of the podcast. Jonathan, he's saying that HBO is going to do an ad-free version, or excuse me, an ad-supported version. They've already announced it. This is something that will happen, and we just have to wait and see how it manifests, takes shape, and takes form.
I mean, did they confirm it? Like, I think it was just a rumor. I don't think it's been confirmed, has it?
I think I'm with Jonathan here. I think I'm 70% sure that's correct, and that there will be an ad-supported version.
I'm gonna Google search that.
All right, that's yeah. I mean, that's totally fair, totally valid. But yeah, I think what we'll also see is more original content, because I think that's gonna be the way for streaming services to differentiate themselves. And as the agreements are kind of drying up in Netflix's timeline, I think that's where their push is. They're trying to create more original content, more incentive for people to sign up and stick with the platform. And even if the show you were looking for, like even if The Office isn't there, maybe there's another show that's similar enough that you enjoy and that you're willing to watch.
I mean, I sometimes wonder what goes through the heads of some of these conglomerates. Like, the things that they're doing right now are the exact reason why people got upset with cable and started cutting the cord.
We're going backwards. Like, we're just making it all complicated again.
And they're adding like I actually don't like what Netflix does. Like, I like how they have the tiers about streams, but they also reduce the quality.
I don't like that at all either.
It's stupid, because going back to about piracy, I could literally go pirate the content off of Netflix and get it in beautiful, like uncapped, like 4K, like not even compressed, like just raw 4K glory, right? and Netflix wants to charge $18 to get 4K. Like,
That
that's wild.
Yeah, it is kind of wild. Did you hear what Sony's doing though? They announced a streaming service that's going to support up to, I think, 80 megabits per second. In comparison, I'm pretty sure Netflix's 4K is 25 megabits per second. So Sony is doing 80 megabits per second for their streaming platform, and it'll allow you to basically watch like the Blu-ray quality of the show or movie on your TV, which I think will be pretty cool. But I also think it's a super limited rollout. I believe they just announced it at CES 2021.
That is super exciting. I was gonna say, with 4K sort of finally becoming adopted, I'd be interested to see if a streaming service comes out. So, in the audio space, right? You're kind of big into audio, Stetson. I'm sure you know about high fidelity like audio, like where people literally like rip the music straight from like an old school not a CD.
Record.
God help me. Record, yes, an old school record to get that full unadulterated, uncompressed quality.
Yeah.
I would wonder if a streaming service might come out one day where they're giving you like the legit original like cinema style quality of the film. Like they're literally getting the raw film and basically digitizing it in like 8K or whatever the raw nature was for the highest possible quality. Would you be into something like that? Like a super like high premium streaming service?
Sign me up. I'd be so into that. I mean, I'd almost be into if Netflix or an existing service let you download the movie in like the full quality possible. So instead of actually having to stream it, you could watch just like the original version on the server at the highest quality possible on your TV, and then delete it afterwards.
You know, now that you mention that, Netflix and a lot of other streaming services, they let you download for offline viewing when you're on your phone.
Yeah, but it's like standard definition by default, and I think like up to 1080p or 720p if you select HD.
Yeah. So what I was going to say was, why do you think they don't just let us download it in 4K or let us download it in whatever resolution we want? Why do you think they put that random limit there?
Honestly, not sure. Maybe it has something to do with their agreements in place, but with their original content, that shouldn't be an issue. Maybe it has to do with their server load. They want to make sure, because I remember during the 2020 year, they actually limited the quality to, I think, like standard definition by default to help ease networks. So maybe
that was only in the EU, and it wasn't because Netflix didn't have the bandwidth. It was because ISPs in the EU couldn't keep up with the traffic.
All right, well, we can throw that out the window then. So, yeah, maybe there is no good reason for it. I'm not sure why. I would love to do it. I mean, maybe it is related to piracy. They want to make it more challenging to pirate, and if you are able to download it, maybe that's something I don't know. I'm speculating here, but I think I would love to see that because I love watching, as I mentioned, the movies, the shows, and their original mastered content. In fact, I would have preferred to actually go to the theater. I love going to the theater to watch and enjoy movies, and I wish I could still do that, but to me it made more sense to invest in kind of a really nice home theater setup. So that's what I did, and I would just love to be able to get the optimal picture quality on the TV. So
well, I hate to break it to you, but Peter B came in clutch and told me that my pipe dream about converting film into like a uncompressed like raw digital like full resolution is not possible. You have to watch it via like the theater equipment. Peter B in the chat on YouTube.
Oh, it's the projection.
Yeah. Part of what makes analog film analog is the projection media. So
okay, that's a very fair point, which we neglected to consider.
Maybe in some hypothetical future world one day. But here's something that here's something I would wonder. Since we're talking about everything regressing, do you think we'll get back to the point where we'll just be like these like original content producers like Netflix will just start selling DVDs to people or something? Not DVDs, but like just selling it instead of streaming it. Like you could buy the whole season of Stranger Things for $60.
Ooh, that's a really good question. So I would kind of like that because I think what we end up getting is this weird kind of hybrid approach to, it's almost like what Apple's doing, where you have Apple TV, which is their subscription service, and then you can also just go on iTunes and straight up buy stuff. So I could almost see Netflix like offering like maybe a subscription deal And if you're an existing subscriber, maybe a discount if you wanted to purchase shows and own them forever. And if you're not a subscriber, maybe the option to buy shows that are Netflix originals.
I mean, that would be pretty dope. I don't necessarily see this happening because I'm sure it's probably less profitable. But
Yeah,
like,
less profitable, less reason or incentive to actually sign up and become a paying subscriber. But I don't know, maybe, because as Breaking Data said in the comments on YouTube, a lot of these companies, they're thinking about money. They're thinking about how they can increase profits, reduce their bottom line, and make their company earn as much money as possible. So if for some reason they deem it profitable to make their shows available to purchase individually, they may explore trying that and see what happens.
well, I'm gonna move on to something else that I think will definitely happen. So as we were talking earlier, I told you about how I share my girlfriend shares her password with me for Disney Plus. I
Yep.
guarantee you, one of the things that happens here in the coming like decade is streaming services are gonna crack down hard on password sharing. I guarantee it.
100% correct. What's going to happen is they're leveraging that to grow their user base, and even if they can't report active users, they're still exposing their platform to a huge number of people. And then I'm 95% sure Netflix already has this in place where they have software that can tell if it's like feasibly possible for you to have traveled from one location to another location in a certain time that like the streaming starts happening. Because or maybe that's Spotify. I'm not actually sure, but I know I'm pretty sure it's Netflix, where yeah they're working on finding ways, like you said, to tell like, all right, my cousins live in one state, I live in another state. Is it possible for them to have traveled there on vacation and be watching? Nope, they started watching like literally 30 minutes apart. That's not possible, and that could potentially flag your account. So I think you're right. They will eventually make it and crack down on the account access and make it so password sharing is unfortunately probably a thing of the past.
I
But
mean, it's gonna suck too because when they end up implementing these crackdown measures, it's gonna take away functionality that made streaming services so beautiful, right? Like one of the awesome things about streaming services pre-COVID was, I could watch a show at my house, I could watch it at work on my lunch break, I could watch it in my car while I was driving. It didn't matter where I was watching. As long as I had an internet connection, I was great. One of the things that I think will likely happen is we'll see streaming companies implement something where they're checking your IP address, where similar to how with cable TV, right? You can only watch cable TV at your house because it's where your house address is. I think what we'll end up seeing happen is like a streaming company will sell you a service, and when you're setting up your stuff, they'll match it up with like your billing address or something, or they'll match it up with your IP address. And if they see you watching TV somewhere that's like without maybe say over 40 miles away, they'll be like, no, ain't happening. There's no way that you're there. You know what I mean?
I completely agree. Yeah. And we actually had a confirmation in the YouTube chat, Peter B. Spotify does do the time delta thing, and I'm like 65% sure that Netflix is doing something similar, but we have confirmation Spotify is doing it. The technology is out there, it exists, and it could be coming sooner than we think to our favorite streaming services to potentially entice us, incentivize us to purchase our own individual account and get our own login credentials.
I mean, Xfinity already does it too. Like, if you get TV through Comcast, they have a streaming app that they actually have that kind of works like a YouTube TV in a way, where you can like watch all your TV on like your phone or whatever. But they base it off of your IP address. You can only watch all the content when you're on your Wi-Fi. If you turn on like your cell phone data, you can still watch some of the TV content, but you don't get your full lineup of channels. So it's very easy for them to do. And I can definitely see them doing it once cable TV is truly good and dead.
When do you see this happening?
I see it happening once. I'm gonna say once only 30% of Americans have cable TV or something like that, where it's like a minority of people are still subscribing to traditional entertainment. That's when I see it happening. Because if they do it right now, it'll piss too many people off, and then they'll just go, looking for something else. But they'll do it once they've pretty much got enough market share to be a vast majority, and once broadcasters are basically only putting their content on the streaming services versus having it come on cable first, because they got to win over all the broadcasters first, right?
Sure. I think I could honestly see this happening in a 2-year timeline, where 2023 is when we start seeing this sort of enforcement being rolled out.
Okay, you giving it 2 years?
I'm giving it 2 years.
I'll give it 4.
Okay. I think given the growth we saw of Disney Plus this past year, yeah, I can see it, something starting to manifest in about a 2-year timeline. That's my
Would
take.
would that would that be the nail that like would that be the nail in the coffin that would get you to cancel your Netflix?
It might if I have to pay for my own. I'd much rather go on YouTube than Netflix at this point. So, but there are fun shows to watch. I'd probably like bounce between them and pick one streaming service per quarter, maybe something like that, so I can enjoy some content and then swap over, enjoy some new content. I don't think that's a bad model, but it is challenging to cancel sometimes.
Okay. So Stetson, I think we kind of, I mean, let me ask, do you have any other thing you want to talk about for the future entertainment, or are you kind of?
I feel like we have gone into the future for entertainment, and we'll actually have more on entertainment in terms of AR and VR in some upcoming episodes.
Okay.
But for this episode, for streaming services, I think we have exhausted the conversation, at least from my notes and my ideas.
Okay, well then let me move on to a fun question I had dished up for you. If you had $1 billion to create your own streaming platform, what would you create, and how would you make it make money?
Okay, so we already determined the number one thing people care about when it comes to streaming platforms is the content. So, thinking about what we've talked about, I think my strategy would be somewhat similar actually to YouTube Originals. I think what I could potentially do is leverage not the larger celebrities, not the A-list celebrities in movies, but I think I could potentially leverage larger YouTube channels with bigger audiences to create a streaming platform that empowered them to do more stuff, bigger projects, create better videos for their audience, and to make something special for the audience to enjoy the platform. But I don't know. I feel like we have such a saturated market in the streaming world, somewhat similar to the cell phone industry, that I'm not even sure if that idea would generate any revenue whatsoever. I mean, we already saw the rise and fall of Quibi, so what's to say that wouldn't kind of potato and go on its face as well? I mean, I haven't even watched any YouTube original content, and that's kind of what I'm describing it to some degree here.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what I was thinking. I actually thought you were going to steal it from my mind. I would just straight up make a YouTube competitor. YouTube has no competition at the moment, and there's clearly content providers that are upset with YouTube at times. So I would literally make a streaming platform where I treat the creators well, let them make my content, right? So that way I don't have to make large investments. Like I wouldn't even do the YouTube original angle. I would just let them create their own content and post it. And I would just do a better job at letting the creators actually make money so that they're happy.
Yeah, how do you envision this being different than YouTube, or how do you try and
Well,
separate it?
the way it would be a little bit different, first off, is I would try to make the bulk of my revenue not come from advertisements. So YouTube, right? We see a lot of changes take place because YouTube has to make advertisers happy. I wouldn't want that to be my main motivator. I was actually thinking I would have a subscription. So for, we'll say $9.99 a month, $10, right? For $10 a month, you can watch all the creators that you want, all your favorite creators. And for creators that want to, for people that want to create content on the platform, they don't have to pay anything. They just have to make videos, make content the same way you would on YouTube, like how we're making this podcast. Only the viewers have to pay $9.99. And that's kind of how I would have it. And then I would let content creators have their own sponsorships and brands. I wouldn't even take a cut out of it. I would just strictly try to be making money from the actual initial like $9.99 in revenue. And 4K would be supported. It would sort of almost emulate what Floatplane's been doing, but be like cheaper.
Sure. I think, yeah, the biggest areas I could see YouTube improving is the comment section. That is a disaster. I literally just having a Reddit version of the comment section with the threads, I think would be infinitely better. I would love that. I would be ecstatic if something even close to that came to be. And yeah, I think you're right to a large extent that you know, the YouTube algorithm is promoting content that can be clickbaited and false. So I'm not sure what the solution is in terms of, because typically views are associated with revenue, and I'm not sure what an alternative method would be that could somehow associate earnings to quality of content. But I
I
could
mean,
definitely appreciate a.
it would still be view based, but one of the key things that I'd also focus on is making sure that corporations don't take over. Because I don't know if you've ever been on like YouTube's homepage when you're not logged in with your account, but it's literally just like CNBC and like all these different corporations. Like it's not what YouTube started out as, which is why I
Yeah.
was saying I would want to make a YouTube competitor that's truly about the creators, one that treats the creators really well. Like I wouldn't do a streaming service like Twitch because that already exists and there's already Mixer, but there's no good like
Mixer's
YouTube.
gone.
Mixer's gone.
Yeah, Mixer is gone.
I didn't even know about that.
I'm
Oh my
sorry, Dennis. Well, that's part of the reason it's gone. Yeah, it was Microsoft discontinued it and migrated everyone over to Facebook Live.
Oh no. Facebook Live? Oh no. You know, doesn't Facebook have original content now that I think about it?
I'm not sure. I spend very little time on that platform, if any. Honestly, Facebook is probably the biggest competitor to YouTube right now. If we're
That's scary and sad, and I trust Google more with my dad than Facebook.
yeah, I'm kind of with you there. So
So as far as a streaming platform, there's nothing like too crazy. Like, is there a specific genre of content that you would focus on
I
with
mean,
your?
so maybe that's an interesting idea. Like if you can niche it down and make it the best of the best for that, maybe it's the best of the best sitcoms. Maybe it's the best of the best anime. Maybe it's the best of the best, I don't know, TV shows. That's everything though. So
Yeah.
I'm just feeling like it's so saturated and you want everything, but the licensing agreements kind of inhibit that. So almost the best approach is to aggregate everything like Google TV does, like you described your Comcast box doing, and like Apple TV does.
Okay. Well,
Or, okay, wait, compromise. Final idea, you create a hybrid service that you pay a little bit for, and then you watch your favorite shows on. All right, here's how it would work. You would pay, let's say it's $5 a month. You pay for this service, and it pulls from all the other services, so you can watch your favorite shows and just basically pay to watch those shows. That violates so many agreements, but I think it would be pretty cool.
yeah. I mean, I get it. I guess. But
It's
yeah.
like what we talked about, where you could buy the show. That's basically the concept of this. But instead of buying the show, you just pay and then you watch like the one or two shows you want. I don't know
Yeah.
if it would work.
I mean,
I mean-
this episode made me realize one thing, though, man.
What?
It's a sad day in the streaming world, man. The golden age of when you could just have Netflix and have it all is gone.
It's so true. It's so true. And, you know, shout out to the Vergecast, actually. They did kind of a great episode on this where you see content migrating between different platforms. There's so many backdoor agreements in place and licensing deals that for consumers, it went from the answer, Netflix, one place, everything you want, to more chaos and complexity, exactly what we had with cable. So now instead of having different channels, we just have different streaming services and platforms for almost every niche imaginable. So I don't know if that was an industry I would go into. Maybe I'd just pivot and make an MVNO and call it a day.
Yeah, fair enough. But Stetson, is there anything on the mind that you feel like you want to cover? Or do you want to kind of wrap it up?
I think we should kind of wrap this show up. There's one other Patreon question we got from Timothy M, and he was asking about my thoughts on virtual CES so far. Interesting, and devices and things I'm excited about. Timothy, that is a fantastic question, and I'm excited to share. We're going to be doing and covering pretty much all of that in the live stream tomorrow with Sherry from At Whistle Out. So, you know, stay tuned for that, and we'll hopefully be able to dive in deeper there. And for everyone else who's watching and listening, thank you for joining us on the live stream. And, you know, consider supporting the Patreon to get exclusive content, some behind the scenes, and some additional stuff. I think one of the cool things I love is the comparison chart where you can actually compare cell phone plans in a spreadsheet, filter by cost per gigabyte, and really find the best deal out there. So, Des, I think that's it. Did you have anything you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I just want to extend and say and thank you to the current Patreon members that are currently supporting the podcast. Without you guys, some of the things that we are doing wouldn't be possible, like the extensive testing that Stetson does. So you really are a huge part of this community and the reason why this channel could do what it does. I also just want to thank everybody out there that did come out to watch the show, as well as all the people that posted all these incredible comments to help us out. And I hope to hear from you guys tomorrow when we do our show covering CES.
Yep, that will be tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, so stay tuned for that. Either way, that's going to be it for this episode of the Best Phone Plans podcast. Thank you all for listening. I'm Stetson.
And I'm Dennis.
And we look forward to talking to you in the next episode.